while. You want to talk Hawthorn's delistings before we head back to the fixture stuff. Welcome to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, to me, Hawthorn's delistings are a direct consequence of the AFL win the draft, incentivising teams to bottom out. The system sort of punishes sides that are competitive and mid-table. Essendon's a good example. For 20 years, they've pretty much finished halfway every year. They never get any high picks. Hawthorn, to me, have clearly made a decision that we are better off to bottom out now, have 3, 4, 5 bad years, and then we're going to be loaded with high draft picks. Because I've got no doubt if there was no draft, those three, O'Meara, Mitchell and Gunston, would all be there next year, and Hawthorn would be very competitive again. Their percentage this year was 89. Now, because of these delistings, they're going to become uncompetitive. They remind me of North Melbourne. North Melbourne did the same thing. They sacked 5 of their best players. Melbourne, about 15 years ago, went down the same route of, being obsessed with youth. Anyone who was over 30, they would get rid of. And it meant that for about 12 years, they became completely and utterly uncompetitive. To me, if we didn't have the draft, this wouldn't happen. So this is if you incentivise teams for bottoming out, they're going to do what Hawthorn's doing now and say, to quote Sam Mitchell, he doesn't want to sneak into the 8. He doesn't want his team to be competitive and sneak into the 8. He instead wants to be uncompetitive for a little bit, get some draft picks, and then win a flag. It's completely the wrong attitude for the it might work for Hawthorn, but for the competition, it's a very bad mentality for clubs to be having.
So
they don't want to be competitive.
The only alternative, Aaron, is if we have, like they have in the US, to stop this kind of thing, where you have a lottery, where you might have, all the teams that miss the 8 go into a lottery for the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pick, etc. And to simplify it, if you finish 16th, you get 8 picks in the lottery, something like that. You finish 17th, you get 6 picks in the lottery. You finish 15th, you get 4. All that down to, you finish 10th, you get 1 pick in the lottery. So is a lottery system a better way of doing it? So you don't get guaranteed the number 1 pick in the draft if you finish last?
I think you'd be better off to do what the NRL do and have no draft at all and just have a salary cap. If every side's got the same amount of money to spend on players, there shouldn't be massive gaps. I mean, the other thing I think would be a good idea, if you gave the first pick to 9th, that would mean that sides like Hawthorn would not want to bottom out. They'd be wanting to top up and compete and get closer to the 8. And then if they finish 9th, they get the top pick. At the moment where if you're competitive, you're being penalised. And if you're uncompetitive, you get rewarded. It's a horrendously bad system.
So Carlton, you reckon it would be a better system if Carlton got the number 1 pick in this coming draft for finishing 9th?
Well, it would, because the sides below them wouldn't have been bottoming out.
Yeah.
Sides like North Melbourne wouldn't have sacked 6 players. North Melbourne 6 years ago sacked their best 5 players. They wouldn't have done that. They would have been desperate to improve and compete. And then you just wouldn't have teams bottoming out. The Gold Coast and the Suns, when they joined, the Gold Coast and the Giants, they wouldn't have been playing sides with 17 guys under 20. They would have had older, more competitive players, and they would have finished sort of halfway. Like the Bears' first 3 years, 6, 7, 8 wins, which is more than what the Suns and the Giants won, simply because there was no incentive to finish last. They were thinking about, we need to be competitive in year 1, not year 5. Not in year 5.
I'm hearing everything you're saying, Aaron. That's the system we've got at the moment, and unfortunately it does in some ways reward the teams that end up down the bottom of the ladder for multiple years. But most of the teams that end up down the bottom of the ladder don't try to end up down the bottom of the ladder, which is one thing that I do admire about our sport. I think most of the time, all the teams that are down the bottom of the ladder are trying their hardest for every game to try and win that game with their best 22 in the team, as opposed to, putting guys out for spells, resting guys, putting them in wrong positions, etc. I don't think Hawthorn will stay down the bottom for that long. So I'm not that pessimistic about Hawthorn being, bottom 2 for the next 3 years and getting draft picks. But I would hate that to be Hawthorn's plan, because I do not like that idea of a plan either, Andrew. And if that ends up being the plan of too many teams, the AFL will have to bring in a lottery system like we've got in the US. Appreciate your call. Angelo and Glen Waverley, welcome to you, Angelo.
Thank you. I just got a question.